tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, once we get this thing started, this is how it works. You can watch parts of our show. In fact, you can watch the entire show on YouTube, streaming live daily at the Team 980. But then we cut it up into nice segment-sized pieces, and when we post them up on YouTube, at Craig Hoffman and at the Team 980, you leave comments. We go through them. We read them, the ones that we think are either fun, interesting, entertaining, terrible to respond to, worthy of response, something that elicits emotions from our one-person panel that is me. We read during this segment at 5:30 on Thursdays, and thus, here we go. Matt, any questions on the premise of the segment?
No, I get it. Comment section is always where the most...
It's where hopes go to die, Matt.
It's where most constructive criticism always is.
No, it's not. We're going to get to constructive criticism and a lack of constructive criticism in this segment, in fact. Okay, let's dive in with some thoughts on what has been the biggest story in Command Land this week, and that is Jahan Dotson's status on the roster. This one from 6RR Chris 723. Oh, how I've missed reading screen names. 6RR Chris 723 says, if we're putting Jahan on the bubble/hot seat, actually feature him. He played all those snaps versus the Jets and was targeted 3 times, 2 of which he caught. The other was airmailed and he fell down. Besides that the QB never looked his way on tape. You can say, well, he wasn't getting open, and that's where I push back. He was open on a slant and a sit, but the QB worked the other side of the field. So how about we feature him versus Miami and see if he takes advantage of it, then put him on the hot seat. Here's what I would tell you, Chris. This is about way more than a preseason game. And this is where I think fans can get in trouble with their opinions on certain things when they judge it based off 100% of the data they have. And by the way, when I say fans, I should include media here too. I will mea culpa. We can only judge based off what we see and what we hear. And fans have the least information by nature because you guys can't go to the same amount of practices that we can as media. But even then, we are not in the meeting rooms. We are not in whatever other situation. We're not in the walkthroughs. Like, we also can only watch one particular player and we get no replays versus them watching every single drill, every single snap, every single team rep, every single individual rep on tape. Because if you think they just watch the team stuff, no, they'll watch the individual drills. They'll watch routes on air. And if you're not doing the stuff you're supposed to there, where it's impossible really for us from the sideline to have any real judgment unless you know the exact route and the exact timing and the exact number of steps or whatever of that drill, they know all that stuff. And so if you just are thinking that Jahan is in hot water or whatever phase you want to put him in based off of the preseason game, you are kind of missing the point. This is based off a continuing lack of satisfaction with his performance in all aspects of training camp. That is why he's playing all those snaps as opposed to hanging out with Terry on the side, being like, la-li-da, we are wide receiver 1 and 2, and everything is great. So, yes, is the ultimate test the game? Is it perhaps the biggest piece of information, either a joint practice or a game? Absolutely. And would I like to see Jahan Dotson featured more if that's the case and see what happens this weekend? Yeah, I would. But I also do kind of laugh. I will say, Chris, if Chris is correct and he was getting open regularly, then fine. But he's got to get open in timing. He's got to get open exactly when he's supposed to. And sometimes you're open on the backside of a play because the corner realizes it's the backside of the play and he's not really trying that hard. So there's that. But I do sometimes laugh. It's like, well, wide receivers never getting the ball. And I'm like, well, part of his job is to get open. So there's that. And I think sometimes one of the issues that we've had with Jahan, or that they've had with Jahan, is when he gets open. If you need to be open now, getting open now doesn't help you. You have to play with more urgency, and that's been an issue for Dotson. As for the rest of the wide receiving core, Jordan Varian 6489 responding to the news that Martavis Bryant has signed with the Commanders, which of course he did. And we were talking about, what is his chance to make the roster and all that kind of stuff. And Jordan makes what I thought was a very, very good point. I personally see the Martavis signing a little different. I think his size brings a different look for Forbes and St. Juice for when they guard some bigger wideouts in season. If he stands out in practice and makes the team, great. If not, he still provided good value and gave our corners a look that no other wide receivers on the team can. I think this is exactly right, actually, in reading through the full comment, because that two things can be true at once. They can be taking a flyer to see if he can regain some level of form that he had as a rookie 10 years ago. He was a rookie in 2014. It is 2024. He has not played since 2018. But if he can regain that form, and by the way, he's in much better shape to do it, literally. He was 230 pounds last year on the practice squad in Dallas. Now he's down to 208. So he's back down to his true playing weight. His fitness is high. Like, he's ready to give himself a shot. And who knows? Maybe he makes this team. There's a physicality he plays with that this team could use. And a veteran savvy, perhaps, just a maturity about him at his age and everything that he's gone through, that if that maturity is there, this receiver room could use that. He's the oldest guy, I think, him and Crowder. And I think he's older than Jameson. Jameson has looked like he's the oldest guy in the receiving room since he was drafted. But that's just the beard talking. But Martavis is 32 years old, but he doesn't have a lot of mileage on his legs because he hasn't played. But we saw it on a screen pass the other day. Like, he locked onto a corner and drove him out of bounds. Like, he's a big, strong dude, and he's got really good speed. So if he makes this team, great. But there are worse things you can have on your roster to prepare for practice squad purposes, which is where he would ultimately go if he doesn't make the team. Like, they will keep him around, it sounds like, to simulate CeeDee Lamb. Hey, we need a big, fast, strong guy to run routes. Martavis, see how this is drawn up on paper? Go pretend you're CeeDee Lamb and go do it. Okay, cool. All right, this week, get your LeBron shoulder get off me mindset, because you're AJ Brown now. Like, that's really, really beneficial, because while let's say Bryson Tremaine would be the guy to do that, is the only other guy who's over 6'2" on this roster. If he makes the practice squad, he's a 4'6" guy. He plays faster, but he surely doesn't play 4'3". So if they can get a guy who plays that big, that fast, that strong, even if he can't really execute their offense on the level that they want, to at least be a practice squad guy, like, there is huge benefit to that. So I thought that was a good one by Jordan. Continuing on Never Read the Comments, our guy Glenn Smith 491, frequent viewer and commenter, talking about Emmanuel Forbes. I thought this was interesting. He said, what freaks me out about Forbes is that his weaknesses are what I thought would be his strengths, and his strengths are what I thought would be his weaknesses. For example, he has shown poor ball skills, but solid cover skills. Emmanuel has actually done a really good job in underneath coverage. And what I would tell you is that's actually not surprising. I think the lack of ball production is really surprising. But part of what made him, I think, special in college is it's not like he's picking off a bunch of deep balls. Hey, it's 40 yards down the field, go up, high point it, get it, right? And I think of a guy like Diggs a couple years ago with Dallas. Like, teams targeted him, and he gave up a ton of yards, but he also got picks because he was really good in those situations. And not all of his picks came that way, but he had more than a few. Forbes is a guy that would jump a lot of stuff. Like, his quick twitch, I'm dropping, I'm in my crouch, like, I'm getting now, plant my foot and go and jump a route, is excellent. And I think what's happening is some of those same recognition skills and some of those same, like, quick twitch, change of direction skills are on display, but things are happening a little bit faster, right? And so if it happens a little faster, and in college you were able to jump that route, now you're a half second slower relative to the play. And it's not that it's actually a bad play, but you're not going to pick that off. You're just going to make a tackle upon impact. Or maybe you punch it out. You can't get a clean read to jump it. So I think some of that is happening with Forbes. The thing is, though, he has got to stop giving up the big vertical stuff. And so the fact that he's real sticky underneath, I think, not to say, like, Glenn, you're correct. Glenn, the commenter, you are correct. But I do think that is because the expectation maybe was wrong. Maybe that's on us as the media for not selling, or properly painting the picture. But I do think that's the expectations being off, not opposite, in terms of things have switched. That said, the ball production needs to show up, because you can't, like, what Dan and Joe Witt Jr. showed even in Dallas with a guy like Diggs is if you give up a bunch of yards but you turn the football over, we can live with that. If you give up a bunch of yards and you don't turn the football over, now we got problems. That was kind of what St. Juice was last year. It's like, yeah, really good on a bunch of plays, sticky underneath, no ball production, gives up one or two big shots or give two big chances a game. Can't live like that in the modern NFL. Shinku Hug. Wow, this is Matt, this one's a doozy. You have the sheet in front of you?
Shinku Hakuden, I believe.
No, that was definitely not right.
Hadoken?
Yeah, because there's a
Shinku
Hadoken.
Hadoken.
Shinku Hadoken. Shinku Hako? Ken? Like, do we think this guy's actual name is Ken at the end there? Or do we think this is I don't know. I think we spent too much time on this guy's screen name.
I don't know. Maybe leave another comment with the origin of your screen name.
Yeah, Shinko Hakuden. If you Hadoken. If you watched ever read the comments and you've made it this far, tell us how to say your name. Voila. Anyway, that guy or lady says, I love Jahan. I do. I still think he can be a wide receiver 1 in the league, just going off his rookie year and his college tape. But if he doesn't fit the scheme, trade him for Aiyuk now. I said this earlier in the show, but I'm based off how our listener data works. Chances are very few of you were listening an hour and a half ago. So I'm going to say this again and let it live for posterity in all of our digital platforms. If Jahan Dotson is not physical enough, big enough, strong enough to play for Adam Peters in Washington, why the hell do you think San Francisco would want him? It is one of the most annoying things that sports fans do is just assume that their trash will be someone else's treasure. And I'm using the colloquial phrase here. I'm not actually calling Jahan Dotson trash, to be very, very clear. But that that guy, we want to trade him, that other team's definitely going to want him, and we get the thing that we want. Voila! It's perfect. And I can even hear you saying, but San Francisco wants a wide receiver in return. That's the holdup in the trade. Yeah, they don't want just any wide receiver. You can't slap an 83 on me and be like, hey, we got you Craig Hoffman. Like, that's not how that works. They want something specific. And San Francisco is a team built more than any other team in the league on toughness. They are built on being physical and kicking your ass. 2 years ago, every single team that played San Francisco lost the next week because playing them left that kind of hangover on you. And so if Jahan Dotson, part of the problem here is what Standig was talking about earlier and what B-Mitch said earlier in the week, like there seems to be like an effort kind of thing. But if you just base it off the tape and look at what his problems were last year and some of the problems that he's had this year in camp, there's a lack of physicality to his game that is why he doesn't seem to jive with what they're building here. And if you think that San Francisco is going to trade for that, you have lost your freaking mind, or you just didn't have an understanding of the San Francisco 49ers in the first place. And if you're just a Commanders fan, I get that. You don't need to feel bad about yourself. I will tell you now, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. The Niners don't want Jahan Dotson. They just don't. And so could they trade him somewhere else? Are there teams that would probably love to have Jahan Dotson? Yeah, absolutely. Is that potentially, like, I don't know, is there a 3 or 4 team trade, something that we'd see in the NBA that somehow winds up a Jahan Dotson trade for Brandon Aiyuk? Maybe, but I don't think the Commanders are going to wind up with Aiyuk, and I don't think the 49ers are going to wind up with Dotson. If they want to play receiver musical chairs, sure. But I still think Aiyuk is going to be a Niner or a Steeler, and I'm very sure that he's not going to be a Commander, and I'm even more sure that Jahan Dotson's not going to be a 49er in return for Brandon Aiyuk in that trade. So, sorry to burst the bubble. This is the end of your Jahan Dotson trade fantasy. I don't know. Do they have in the NBA, they have the trade machine, Matt, because you have to do the salary matching. Is there an NFL edition of the trade machine?
I don't know, but you got to think Brandon Aiyuk last year was one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league.
It was a second-team
metrically.
All-Pro.
I mean, he was fantastic, and people are talking about trading him for a player that isn't necessarily even the second best on
there would be
this
draft
team.
pick compensation and all that kind of stuff.
There has to be.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if Adam called his old boss, John Lynch, and was like, I'll give you Dotson in a second for Aiyuk, Lynch would be like, you're joking, right? Not because the second isn't right. It's the Dotson piece.
Yeah, it's not a piece that they can be using in their system.
It doesn't work.
Nope.
So stop doing that. Stop doing that. Okay, that's the end of my Jahan Dotson trade rant. Cliff Kingsbury, we talked about how he is off to a hot start in training camp, and, well, that's not unusual for Cliff Kingsbury. Hot starts are kind of what he does. Isak 301, that's why I'm going to go with that screen name pronunciation. Isak 301 says, feels like this is how he starts off wherever he goes. Give the guy an off season with the whiteboard and a Sharpie. To only watch the magic happen. More to your point about once film is out, his offenses have sputtered down the stretch repeatedly. Let's hope that's not the case this time around. Absolutely. And as I talked about in the video that this comment was left on, like, the hot start's great, but a hot start followed by traditional Cliff Kingsbury late season collapse is not going to work. So the hope is that with Cliff this year, just focused on the offense. He has never been an OC in the NFL. Never. That they can finish strong. And he has the time and the resources, and he's not dealing with head coach stuff to really lock in. And I think the other big part of this is I trust the other voices in the room as well. I trust Anthony Lynn especially to be a great quality control, to Brian Johnson. They have enough brain power to problem solve late in the year, and whether that's due to teams getting tape and making them force different things or change their emphases or create new solutions to their problems, or whether it's injuries that they have to work around, whatever it is late in the season, I trust that they have the brain power in that room. I will say on a much less important note about this comment, why do people talk about whiteboards and Sharpies? Use a dry erase marker with a whiteboard. If you use a Sharpie on a whiteboard, it's permanent. That'd be bad. We need Cliff to be able to adjust. Maybe that's Cliff's problem. Oh my God, Matt, I just solved it.
They never gave him dry erase markers. They've forced
Cliff's
him to
been
work
working with Sharpies the whole time.
You gotta adjust.
Oh my God.
You cracked the code.
Get Kingsbury on the phone now. Tell him to change his markers. That's the problem. Last but not least, a couple of fun comments. Maddie, we'll start with Bobby S417 talking about Jahan Dotson. Maybe he should be putting his damn mouthpiece and then see if he's still dropping the ball. I know his catch rate will go up. How much? We will not know until he grows up and does it. First of all, Bobby, a period or like 4 would really help this comment. This is reading that was very difficult to figure out where one sentence stopped and started.
You can tell.
Complaining about someone growing up and not using punctuation is rich.
You can tell that Bobby is really passionate about it just because that was a stream of consciousness.
Yeah, no. And to the substance, y'all get upset about the weirdest things. He doesn't put his mouthpiece in. That's why he sucks at football. That's what Bobby's trying to say here. He doesn't suck at football and has nothing to do with whether or not he can catch. What are we talking about? Maybe that's why some people leave comments like this, is because I call out nonsense like that. The millennial car guy, I can say this word on the radio, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, hopefully. The millennial car guy says, Hoffman comes off as a douche, not likable at all. To which I responded, that's a personal opinion. I actually think that the funnier comment, though, is someone who replied to that with, be careful with Hoffman. He was on the Drake May bandwagon real heavy before we picked JD. One, I've talked about this a lot. This is not the most important thing. Actually, it probably is the most important thing. That's not true. And people that are saying that are the most annoying people on the internet. So I was not real heavy on the Drake May bandwagon. I was very interested in learning more about all of the quarterbacks. But I've gone on that rant many times. the part of this that I find genuinely hilarious, Matt. Be careful with Hoffman. What does that mean? What are you being careful of? Am I going to come to your house?
I don't know. You got to be wary because you're going to give some real interesting takes.
Hey, DMV Bay 2535. Boo. Ah! Like, what do we... Be careful?
I don't know. Maybe it's because you went to Syracuse? I don't know. Maybe... I don't know.
Maybe he went to Georgetown.
I'm trying to figure out some kind of a through line.
552 in Georgetown still? Never mind. I don't want to get in trouble. Be careful. Honest to God, if you have made it this far in this segment, DMV Bay 2535. What? Be careful of what? What do you think I'm going to do to you? Even if I proverbially, metaphorically bite your head off on the internet. Whatever. Who cares? Also, your opinion sucks. Boo! When we get back, it's our Pick 6 at 6. The 6 biggest storylines from the day in Command Land. Washington down in Miami practicing against the Dolphins. Boo! It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. I'm an idiot. We're also live on the Free Odyssey app.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.